Padma Shri Dr. Pushpesh Pant, culinary historian and food critic, Professor Emeritus, has taught international relations and law at the Jawaharlal Nehru University for over 40 years. TV anchor, columnist, author of the best-selling India cookbook listed as New York Times Bestseller. He is a passionate learner and has a deep and broad understanding about anything and everything, and he generously shares it all in his many talks, numerous writings, and teachings. He is a lovable man. His energy exudes openness, true oneness, and joy. Dr. Pant is surely the stuff of legends.
And my mother was a good cook. All mothers are good cooks, but she was, I think, exceptionally so. Whenever she cooked something, my father would say, "Acha, what happens if you eat this?" And one of these conversations, he said, "Have you done something about aphrodisiac foods?" So I was young, then I was not 5, I was 7 and 8, a bit of a precocious kid, and I asked my mother, "What is aphrodisiac food?" So she looked a little concerned and said, "You will find out when you grow up." So believe you me, I have been growing and I have never been able to find out if there is something called aphrodisiac food.
Well, I don't know where to begin because I think मैं गलत जगह पे गलत आदमी हूँ क्योंकि मैंने हिस्ट्री पढ़ी ज़रूर है और पढ़ाई भी 2 साल आज से करीब 55 साल पहले दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय में है मगर उसके बाद मेरा हाल वो है कि बहुत अच्छा बदनाम हुआ.
I think the time is of a sale, so I shall begin immediately. Last time when we interacted here in the festival, it was a little more span of time, and Vividha and I discussed the Puranas in general.
To cut a long story short, Delhi is a city with 7 to 8 incarnations. The first city of Delhi was founded in mythological times, say 3000 years before the birth of Christ.
Hello. Welcome, guys, to the podcast Theatre of Joy. I'm so excited today to have Dr. Pushpesh Pant honor us with his presence and his golden, wonderful words. I'm not going to waste time in introducing. You must have heard already something about him, and it's worth typing in Dr. Pushpesh Pant on Google and you will hear wonderful things.
You embarrass me. Have always called me Pushpesh, and when you start calling Dr. Pushpesh Pant, I get really amused.
No, I'll call you Pushpesh now.
Please do that. Please do that, okay. So it feels normal.
Okay. So, Pushpesh, what is your theatre of joy?
My theatre of joy, if you put it that way, is just food. I make a theatre out of food. I enjoy it. So I think you could stretch the definition of the blog and call it theatre of joy. I get greatest pleasure, greatest joy engaging with
all
food.
Over the internet.
And food is always a bit dramatic, whether you are cooking it at home. Tadka laga rahe ho, chowk laga rahe ho, there is a bit of a sound, there is an aroma, there is a flourish where you are serving, or you are eating in a high-end fine dining restaurant where a drama is created
for you
to have the ambience enhanced, so you enjoy your food more. Yes. When you are traveling, you also have street theatre, so to speak.
Yes.
आप चाट खा रहे हो या कबाब खा रहे हो या रुमाली रोटी कोई उछाल रहा हो. So I think as far as I'm concerned, all the drama in my life comes out of food.
Yes. Yeah. And I have been filling myself up. I'm so grateful for the chance that, researching and preparing for this podcast. And I've heard so many wonderful things. I just can say that I'm so grateful to you for just
Come on,
being.
You don't have to be grateful.
No. Look, I'm grateful to you for being, because the way you look at things, the way the patterns you create by just talking about anything, and the connections you have in your own mind, which you generously share with anybody, and it is coming straight For anyone to hear, you have nothing that distracts you. Is your collar looking good? Or maybe you should come up as a, high class man, or, I think that you are not distracted by class, by gender, by any kind of divisions that people in this world distract themselves with.
I think that training also comes out of only food, my involvement with food. I think food is something which doesn't actually recognize class barriers or gender barriers or caste barriers, ideally. These hard times, there are problems about what religion you belong to, what is halal, what is haram, what is jhatka, what is kosher, what do you eat. But the way I was brought up, food was a shared activity and a shared idea, shared joy. So I think, some of the happiest moments I've had, I'll share with you an anecdote. I was driving from, on a scooter, riding back a scooter, not driving, from New Delhi railway station to Jawaharlal Nehru University, and I had a phone in my hand and I was talking to a friend about food constantly from the station till we had come to the Vijay Chowk crossing. The scooter wala at the traffic light stopped the scooter and said, "Aapko khane ka शौक है?" तो I said, "थोड़ा बहुत." He said, "नहीं, जब से आप चले खाने की बात कर रहे हैं, आपके पास वक्त है? मैं आपको बहुत बढ़िया खाना खिलाने देगा." So I was a little surprised, and three-wheeler scooter drivers are the villains in Delhi. So I said, "Yes, वक्त तो है, घर ही जा रहे हैं." He changed direction. We ended up, instead of JNU, to Mayapuri. And he took me to Mayapuri to a Sardarji shop who specialized in adraki cha, जो ginger के पानी में बनता था. Not that I did not know the place. I knew the place because Dua, late lamented good friend, had taken me there once and told me this gentleman only cooks two things near the Purani Sarkari Taksal. There are some eateries, but this Sardarji's chap was to die for. And they'd even called him once to cook at a press club dinner which he had organized for his friends. But I did not let on because this scooter wala was taking me to a discovery.
Yeah.
The chap was excellent. It was very good. What was surprising is that the scooter driver did not let me pay at all. He said, "Ye to meri daawat hai, main aapko laya hu yahan." So I thanked him profusely, sat on the scooter, came to JNU, and again, the villainous scooter driver, much maligned of Delhi, refused to accept fare. He said, "Hum aur aap to khane ke shauqeen hain. To aaj ka din bada acha bita." I took a ride, I enjoyed myself. That is an exception. That is a great rarity. But I also remember shooting with Chani in Chaderi. And we had a local guide, Nanu might remember him, Sony. And he did two interesting things. When we sat down to eat, he said, "I have one request to make. When we are eating, you will please not talk." It was pointed towards me because I could not keep my mouth shut at all, and it was always open to talk when even I was putting my food inside. My feet often are put in my mouth. But this Soni Saab said, subsequently, "Bura mat maniye, we should enjoy food as a grace which we have got rather than read a grace and enjoy food." The same Soni Saab told us that there is a very good doodh ka halwa here. You just go and try it out. So doodh ka halwa was almost like the malai ka halwa, which good friend Vijay Vardhan cooked one day at his house in Chandigarh also. But this is the kind of small things that happen, that somebody who's a stranger who just crossed your path accidentally, coincidentally, and you come across something which you had not either known of before or thought of before. Now, I try very hard since that day. I have not succeeded. It's nice to keep silent, if not throughout the meal. For some people, meal will cease meaning if you share the conversation with it. But to keep quiet for perhaps 15 seconds before you began the meal.
Yes.
And perhaps it sounds like
it used to be a ritual.
It used to be a ritual. Or 10 seconds towards the end of the meal. So you savor it in entirety. So these are the small things which I will share with you one more anecdote. I did not know the person. I wrote something about Afim ka halwa. Afim ka halwa for one of my columns. Now, Afim ka halwa sounds sinister. Is actually not. It is the poppy seeds halwa. So I wrote about it and it was sent to in the column it appeared. I received a letter snail mail, not Gmail. From that, my address was shared in the thing, and it said, आपका अफीम का हलवा तो ठीक है, मगर आपने कभी ये हलवा खाया है? And she mentioned a very odd halwa, which was seeds, but not this. It was not like the bhang ki chutney from Kumaon Hills. So I said कि हाँ ऐसे खत आते रहते हैं. And after some days, a small parcel comes through a courier. Small invitation white metal dabba. Inside that long shelf life वाला हलवा, खा लीजिएगा 2 दिन में वरना खराब हो जाएगा. Now this lady from Kanpur had taken so seriously the column that she had corrected a few things and then said कि आपने इस सीड का तो नहीं खा रखा हलवा ना, ये तो तिल के थे, तिल का हलवा था या क्या था. You know, it was, she never shared the recipe, but then it started as a bond. So I think that is what happens to food. In one case, a lady whose face I don't know sent me something to eat and savor, which she thought was her handiwork. In another case, a scooter driver whom I never met, although we exchanged telephone numbers.
So let me stop you here and bring you to something that is, जिसमें मैं हैरत में हूँ. The energy you exude, which my little head tells me goes back to your homeschooling.
It does. It does. And also, I think one more thing, I will add a caveat. You lose energy and you feel tired if you are doing something which is supposed to be a burden, a chore. Somebody has enforced you to do a job. It's slavery.
Which happens in the schools. And
which happens in the schools.
Yeah.
You are schooled and broken into the mold कि ये आपको करना है, ये होमवर्क है, ये एक्स्ट्रा करिकुलर है, ये हाफ टाइम है, ये शाम को घर जाना है, ये ट्यूशन है.
नहीं, I've been actually looking at, behavioral disorders and ways that people go into the negativity and, do not trust and make that into a whole way of being and lifestyle. And it all starts with the teachers, with the way they talk to you. They erase your
I would agree with you entirely, because there is the great book called Deschooling Society.
Yeah.
And Michael Foucault would say that school is one of the institutions like hospitals, which is supposed to disintegrate yourself.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's almost like one.
And it's an epidemic.
It's an epidemic.
It is an epidemic.
It is an epidemic.
And what is different about you is, I've been around you because of, I met you the first time and Chani brought you home. And the first thing I realized was, I was a little thing, okay, I am one great man's wife, and why would you even listen, or why would not? It wasn't very there, but it's what society had taught me. And there's a game we play in theatre, which is called Yes and. So in that, it's a clowning game also. And in that, one of the participants is saying, such a horrible day today. The other participant has to take it forward, the thread forward, and say, yes. And, there's always the possibility that the clouds will go away. And, when that happens, I'm going to, whether it happens today or 3 days, I'm good. So, and the other participant says, yes. And, in a day like this, you don't feel like going out, and you can say, so the thread continues. And you are yes and. You're a living embodiment of yes and. You will sit down to have chai in, when you're making The Roof of the World or whatever, a film with Chani, and you will sit down with a lowly chai wala on the side of the road, and you will say yes and. वो कुछ भी बोलेगा. You will say yeah, and and that's how you get your data, let's call it in today's terms, and that's how you are always in the possibilities. Because there's nothing distracting you. कि अब यार मैं चनी से बात करूंगा कि ये इस बंदे से बात, इसने मेरे को क्या बताना है, which is the normal thing that might happen. But you never do it.
No, I think you are right. That's due to homeschooling. My mother
Yes.
was always open to letting the children do their thing regardless of what was scheduled for the day.
Yes.
It may have been scheduled for the day कि आज बच्चों को संस्कृत पढ़ानी है,
अच्छा.
आज अंग्रेजी पढ़ानी है, and her way of teaching was very, very open-ended. She did not go step by step. So she would start with a shlok from Kalidas straight away, or she would go from a quote from Shakespeare straight away and explain it backwards. So it would never. I mean, I'll give you an example. She would say, for instance, Astyuttarasyam Devi Devatatma Himalayo Nam Nagati Raja, and so on. But then she would point to the Himalaya, which you could see from the house we had in Mukteshwar, and say, this is the mountain range. And Asti means it exists, it stays there. Himalaya is, of course, Himalaya, abode of snow. Nam Nagadi Raja is the king of the mountains. So the Raj part is explained. Nag is again a mountain. And Dishi Devatatma, it has spirituality and divinity attached to it. Spread like a measuring rod. Purva Parutoi Didi
So
Magaya.
let's talk a little bit about your mother.
Yes. She was fantastic. She was fantastic. She had been educated in various places. She had been educated in Banaras, in Allahabad, in Shillong, and Rajkot earlier. Then she went to Almora with her grandfather, our maternal great grandfather. Then she ended up in Shantiniketan. She ended up in Shantiniketan in 34, the best days to my mind.
Yes.
Tagore was alive, and Tagore took a great fondness for these two Pahadi girls, my mother and her younger sister Gora, and Mama, but Mama was not part of the Tagore household's favored pupils. She was studying Sanskrit and Tibetan, and she was working towards, before she fell in love and married my father and dropped out of Shantiniketan and an academic career, with Kiti Mohan Sen, the grandfather of Amar Sen, and Professor Tan Yun Shan, the father of Professor Tan, who was teaching Chinese in JNU later. So she was working on reverse translations of lost texts from Tibetan, like Vajra Suchi, from Tibetan back to Sanskrit, and she enjoyed. She was a
And you know what? I am so grateful to your mother again. I'm filled with gratitude today. I'll tell you why. She gifted you to the world. And the lineage is very, she had all that input in her education, and she had you. Many of us are not having kids nowadays. She had you, and then, she...
No, what I think is remarkable about her, Minu, is this, that she did not give formally. You did not even know that you are being gifted languages. Like, she was born in Kathiawar. So I was brought up on Gujarati Kathiawadi. She and her mother would talk in Kathiawadi, hamdo. They'd convert S into H. And I was brought up on Giju Bhaini Chopadiyo, the famous children's writer. So Popat Khatu Nathi, Popat Shutu Nathi, Popat Amarvani Dal. And I was brought up on Giju Bhaini Chopadiyo, Jhavirchand Meghadi's folk tales. And Ulpati Munshiji was her father's friend. So I've also read Patrani Prabhuta in Gujarati when I was a little older, Jai Somnath. So it was not as if Gujarati was a alien language. समझ में तो आज पर
And you're supposed to be a polyglot.
No, but समझ में तो आज पर आई जैसे पर बोली शक्ति नहीं. I can still, practice is gone, but I still understand 100%, even dialect. Can't speak as fluently. That was one. Same time, she did not make a difference between Gujarati, which she had learned practically as a mother tongue, and Bengali. She would say, oh, Bank Pada Chapta, the flattened, the nonsense rhymes written by Satyajit's father. So then it came to Bengali, and Bengali, she would again say that the difference between Bengali is the East Bengal Bengali and the West Bengal Bengali, and the food and the Bhadralok and the popular lingua of the common people. So one picked up Bengali without being... Unfortunately, my father also spoke Bengali fluently because his hostel mate in Lucknow Medical College was a Bengali. So Gujarati and Bengali were gifted without you being... So were Sanskrit and English.
Yeah, and bringing you back to the education that the children are getting now. There is always a lot of richness in the mother, in the father. They are, a few generations back, there was more richness than there is now. If we did not have an idea about नहीं बच्चों को ये सीखना चाहिए, IIT जाना चाहिए या whatever kind of a thing. I remember my mother-in-law, she was born, I don't know, she was born ages back, and she had लिटिल नुस्खा, अच्छा पेट दुख रहा है तो वो क्या कहते हैं, अजवाइन और सूंड की गोली बना के खा लो and all that. And I remember one time when she was, I don't know, these things always worked for us, but maybe the doctor is think, some young upstart would say, नहीं, what is this? Doctor के बोल जाओ, एक ही गल है तो पुरानी, this is old thinking, superstition and all that. And I think we have devalued the traditional knowledge or the education that a household can give to a child.
I'm glad you are saying this, because I was involved with the newspaper and education program of Times of India at one stage, 1984.
Yeah.
We went to school, and some schools and most parents had a problem. स्कूल में हमारे बच्चों को कोई सिखा नहीं रहे, हमारे बच्चे बड़े बदतमीज होकर स्कूल से आ रहे हैं. So I was part of a parent-teacher meeting informally, and I asked the parent, do you think that you can send your little monkeys to school and teachers will make men out and women out of your monkeys and send them back home? Don't you have a responsibility? The schooling starts at home.
हम इतनी फीस दे रहे हैं भाई, इतनी फीस दे रहे हैं.
आप इतनी फीस दे रहे हैं. मैंने कहा आपका बच्चा स्कूल में is spending maybe 8 hours, not 8 hours, 6 hours, 6.5 hours. Bus ride भी include कर लीजिए. Much more time is spent at home. Much more time is spent with peer group at home. And the lessons you learn at home, informally, maybe good or bad, especially the value system. जो आपने बात शुरू की थी ना, कि हम अमीर हैं वो गरीब है, हम हाई कास्ट हैं वो लो कास्ट है, हम हिंदू हैं वो मुसलमान हैं,
वो हमारी करियर में किसमें काम.
Now the problem is the parents, if they are behaving in a feudal, patriarchal, misogynist, toxic masculinity manner at home, or the woman is docilely putting up with it or revolting in a manner which is equally traumatic for the child. If there is a gender bias practiced at home between the son and the daughter, how do you expect that the lessons in the school sanitized, put in the syllabus are going to work?
And the lessons are given in a sanitized way because the teacher herself is doing or himself is doing that.
And they don't believe in it. Because I recall...
But that is, taught as something you have to take exams.
I recall my granddaughters going to school. And one of them, my younger granddaughter, complained to me that the teacher herself a woman teacher, suffers herself from the trauma and impact of patriarchy and refuses to accept.
I've tried to train teachers.
No, you have.
They always, there's this big lake that you just cannot swim across, walk across.
The school says you can't come, you don't have to come in a dress. You can come in any dress you come. So the kids went with short t-shirts and torn jeans. And she said, but there is this bhaiya in physics who lowers his eyes because he doesn't like to look at girls who are semi-naked in the class. I said, if the school can put up with semi-naked girls in the classroom, the teacher might get used to it, And then he said, no, but he's partial to boys. Now, his partial to boys can be misinterpreted in half a dozen ways. Does he prefer boys to girls? Does he feel safer with boys than with girls? And then there are problems, but it's a very difficult question to answer because the society around us doesn't prepare the child to grow independently, healthily, because that might create problems. The girl might say, don't touch me, and is an inappropriate touch. It may not be an inappropriate touch for a person born in a different generation. It may be avuncular, it may be grandfatherly, it may not be. There are dirty old men. There are lecherous middle-aged men. True. But that creates life. There may be woke women. There might be a boy who has an alternative sexual orientation. There may be gender fluidity. And all these things the child has to cope with. So, वो जो मेरे ज़माने का homeschooling थी, it would probably render a child a misfit today.
But your parents were also special.
My parents were special, including my father, who would talk about subjects from masturbation to homosexuality. For him, it was like a doctor, physical phenomenon related to some psychological condition, and he was a very old-fashioned doctor.
And that's why I say you're a gift to the world.
No,
because you always, whatever platform I've heard you on, you always be you and talk
But
And
that-
you don't care about the power struggle and that
but
you
that
have
is-
to talk in a certain way, in a certain
But
place.
that is what I think you said in the beginning. My parents made me realize from very early that the only thing which mattered in life was you comfortable in your skin.
Yes.
You don't have to wear good clothes to impress people.
Would you repeat that? Just look into the camera. And
Yes,
please.
I think the greatest gift my parents gave me was to be myself. They made me realize that you don't have to be rich, you don't have to be beautiful, you don't even have to be intelligent, you don't have to be articulate. You have to be comfortable in your skin. You, as long as you are comfortable with yourself in your skin, at peace with yourself, you will be in peace with the world, regardless of what happens. And my mother gave me that great Buddhist lesson from Dhammapad. I didn't know it was from Dhammapad then. She would say, "This too shall pass."
Yes.
Moments of great bliss will pass, joy will pass, exhilaration, exuberance will pass, and abject misery, sorrow shall also pass. So I didn't know it was Buddhist philosophy or Dhammapad, and but this will pass. Everything will pass. Nothing is forever. Not even diamonds. It's something once you imbibe that and realize that, so now wrinkles bhi dikh rahe hain. One day the barber told me, can I put a razor here and trim the dadi properly? Otherwise the wrinkles will show. I said, let the wrinkles show. I'm an old man of 75 plus. Why should I ashamed of my wrinkles? Why should be ashamed of my broken teeth? Why should I have a cosmetic 2-inch to let people say, थोड़ा सा बोलने में गड़बड़ होती है, siblings slur करते हैं, but that's the way old age is. So I'll be hard of hearing and have to ask pardon. I will be probably fumbling a few words, but that is what I think I learned. And second thing I learned from my parents, which again a famous book later came on, Skin in the Game. You are comfortable in your own skin, and you should be passionately involved with something to lose in a game in which you are putting your stakes in. So I think that is what makes you more or less, I shall not say fearless, but not constantly paranoid.
And now I have to ask you that we are putting our skin in the game of artificial intelligence. What do you have to say about that?
Well, you see, again, it's a tricky question to answer because we get into definitional terms. To my mind, all intelligence, including artificial intelligence, is securely founded as of this moment on human intelligence.
On human intelligence.
It is not artificial.
Yes.
The human intelligence has devised algorithms, applets, and search engines which can become more and more sophisticated, and you call it artificial intelligence. Earlier, 50 years ago, you called them expert systems. So the point is that terminology might change, but you might say artificial insemination, shall I put it?
Yes.
It has to still have ova, and it still have to have semen, whether it's Vicky donor or somebody else. So from it, there has to be a semblance of something natural, which leads to an artificial hybrid creation. Now, the point is, you talk in terms of audiobooks, you talk in terms of digital manipulation of images. There has to be an image to begin with.
Yeah.
There has to be Leonardo da Vinci's like
A subject to begin with.
जिसको आप artificial intelligence से कुछ is like the T series remixing. So the point is, I have a strong feeling that there is something. I mean, look, I'm not a believer. I'm an atheist, but I don't believe in intelligent design. But there is something like a cosmic intelligence. It is chance and necessity in this universe. There are certain electrochemical reactions in your brain, synaptic connections, which give you left brain, right brain, whatever you like to call it, the two hemispheres, and you have intelligence. But intelligence translated into our languages, that's why I wanted to bring transcendental intelligence, because Buddhist philosophy again has pragya paramita. There is an intelligence which is transcendent to immediate phenomenal reality.
Yeah.
So there are sense perceptions. There is a Vedana skandha, there is a Rupa skandha. Without getting into complications, your body responds to sensations which are physical sensations. They are processed in your brain, and the model of brain might be Sherrington's shining loom. It might be a clockwork. It might be now a computer, but we know nothing about what goes inside inside the machine or whatever is the equivalent of a machine. So what happens is intelligence is not IQ. It is intelligence plus emotional intelligence plus emotion plus sensations and drives in body. So what happens is when we talk in terms of artificial intelligence, we forget that in our Nashwar Kaya, our body which is going to die one of these days, there is these functions, sensations, processed into intelligence. I think I went to Prajna Paramita because in Buddhist philosophy, there is compassion, which is not sympathy, which is not empathy.
Yes.
It is, Karuna is closest to compassion, sympathy tempered by intelligence. So you are having a detached sense of compassion for a creature or a sentient being or environment, which is supreme intelligence. So it is not as if you, for a monk, you have to be a IQ of 190. Some of the people with highest IQ have been the most diabolical criminals, like Secretary of State Henry Kissinger in America, Beck George Bundy brothers, or even Oppenheimer now. So let's forget about pure intelligence and artificial intelligence. I think what we should worry about is that how little we concern ourselves with our emotions, passions, and drives and keep worrying about intelligence. You have painters who are called village idiots. You have musicians who can only think in terms of music but nothing else. People like cinema makers like Tarkovsky, who would be having very deeply Christian sensibilities and very, very spiritual and making films which are universal. So you would have problem with that. So I think, to get back to your fundamental question, I think there is nothing artificial in the world of human beings, and everything at the same time is artificial, because mankind in its descent of man and ascent of man has created things. So if you create a Stone Age tool, it is artificial because it's beyond your hand and fingers. And you create a nuclear bomb, is artificial. You create a computer which is artificial. So if all that is artificial, manipulation of numbers, abstract ideas, I don't think it's. We know much too little about what is happening, but we know much too little about what is happening in this little skull. Whether it's Broca's brain or Einstein's brain, is the size that matters, is the conditioning that matters, the nature versus nurture debate. And people, great scientists, have great prejudices. They have been anti-Semitic, they have been pro-Semitic, they have been pro-Stalinist and anti-Stalinist. So I don't go back.
And I like that term, artificial insemination. Wow, great. Now I have a lot of questions. What is it?
7 minutes.
Oh, then we have some little time. We don't. We'll edit this out. What? There can't be any society level solutions for anything anyway.
No, for a simple reason, because there are societies existing simultaneously at a point of time. So you have, let's say, when the European expansion was on, the savages, what Levi-Strauss writes about the savage thought, the Panchi Savage, about Latin American tribes, their way of thinking is the same as ours? Is the brain hardwired to think that blood is red and dark is dangerous? Is it true because of hardwiring of human brain and human brain of Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, prehistoric people, or Homo erectus? Or it is Homo australopithecus? And so then there are societies which have developed differently for reasons of geography.
But they just seem to be, being erased out of.
True. But they will not be able to erase out the residue which has passed on into DNA over generations. So if you have an African, a person of African origin who stayed not in the coast, but in the heart of darkness, as Conrad said, in the heart of Africa, still eating raw beef, still eating swallowing, drinking raw blood, and living a life of a nomad and hunter-gatherer, is there a way of thinking hardwired in that brain for survival? which you can change whether you impose modernity or democracy or whatever on it. Same applies to, shall we say, the Chinese, 99% Hans, who have lived, I'm not talking of Mao, I'm not talking of Shri, I'm talking of thousands of years of Chinese emperors who built a wall, the Great Wall, to keep the barbarians out and treat themselves as sons of heaven and isolate themselves from, we are very fond of saying that we too sent Buddhism there, but their Confucianism and Taoism remained with them. And this was a speck, it was, as they say, a chalk mark on the blackboard of history, the Buddhism. So similarly, the Chinese and Japanese might be very close to each other, but there are severe differences. There are great civilizations, Sumerian, Babylonian, which the Americans have tried to wipe out.
But you know, the great World Wide Web is, of course, language and words always are a very important part of a steering of a society.
No, but I have a problem there. The web, which seems to be all pervasive, including the dark web and influencing everybody, unfortunately is a very vicarious existence. And you don't have, you can't have you can self-harm trying to get a vicarious S&M experience. But the interesting part is this, that before the web, people thought that the imperial construct was such, the white man's civilizational mission, that everybody would be cast in the same mold. It did not last. The sun did set on the British Empire, sun did set on the French Empire, the Russian Romanov Empire.
And the web emerged.
And the web emerged post-World War, post-computers. But this weaving, this globalization, technologically. I remember Nayan Chanda's book, there was a globalization, forget about even Nayan Chanda. Go back earlier, the Great Silk Road, the Great Spice Route, the Arabs coming to India, pre-Islam, the Iranian civilization before the Pahlavis took over, before the conversion of Islam. I think there are ways, and we have forgotten Montezuma and the Aztecs, but the First Nations there. I think civilizations don't disappear without leaving a trace. Huntington might propagate the thesis of clash of civilization, but I think what is more important is the convergence and confluence of civilizations.
Okay, so now since time is running, you have had a little experience of homeschooling the children of your son. No, they were there with you and you were a very important part of their lives, although they went to school. So it was a hybrid kind of a...
It always has to be a hybrid, because you can either drop out and be a homeschool person for the rest of your life. But if you want to interact with the rest of the world, you have to have a common frame of reference, a degree to practice law if you want to practice law, and registration in the bar. If you want to practice medicine, you have to do medical school.
Yeah, but I think the children and the young people are the most depraved, most underprivileged, most...
No, you can say whatever you like, I agree with you. Because the children are not in a position to stand up to their parents or defend.
They're sent to war, they're sent to school. My daughter, she has this practice, just as a clown. There's a school bus going and she will just look out and say, I'm so sorry.
No, but
because, it's terrible. And they grew up to be adults who will do the same thing to
unfortunately, because everybody, there is great thing about peer group pressure. And you think that everybody does that, so you are looked down on if you are different. Different people are always discriminated in the society.
But you are different.
Fortunately, I was not made a victim of either differentiation.
How much was it your choice or whatever? I know that you do not go into negativity. You say in possibilities.
No.
You have a brain, a mind that easily makes connections, remembers things, remembers names, and
To be honest, when I was very young, occasionally the thought did cross my mind that why are we not going to school where my father's or mother's friends' children were going. They were being sent to convents in Nainital, St. Joseph's, Sherwood, some to Doon school where my mama was, one of the mamas was a housemaster. And I would ask my mother, why are we being sent to school? But the answer was always very good. The boarding school, you will be separated from us. You will not be staying at home. And then, without debating the point very long, they would say, if you feel like going to a school, you can go on later. But your point is well taken. The decision is not yours.
And also, you seem to have a lot of ease with dealing with the world. Why did you have to go to school for that? You didn't go to school for that.
But that I realized much later, because of exceptional parents and weird guests who came and stayed with us. So, and number of servants who came, they were treated not as equals always in those feudal times, but they were treated as family members from poor relatives who have to be treated with dignity and so on. So you coped with so many servants, so many guests, so many colleagues of father that you knew ye juggling to karni hai na, aapko bhi karni.
So you learned it from there.
I think so.
You learned it from a bustling household.
Yes.
Which was well-to-do, and
it was not poor. We were a big fish in a small pond. The population of the town was 1,200, out of which 600 were Nepalese coolies. The rest comprised of so-called Madrasis, Malayalis, Andhras, Telanganas, Bengalis, Assamese, Sindhis, some Punjabi refugees.
Wow! You chose a good place to
No, I didn't choose. I was born in accident of birth.
You make a choice.
Yes. So I remember that very well.
Yeah.
Even the Punjabi.
And a lot of people are now, IIT graduates and other kind of people who are choosing to shift into the hinterland, so to say,
is what my
and
father,
take the children with them.
That is what my father had deliberately chosen.
Yes.
After he came from Lucknow Medical School, he was practicing in Almora. And when the British doctor from this institute, IVRI, left for war, he chose to stay back there and let all the promotions go by. So he could stay in a place which he loved. Lot of deodar trees, a nice bungalow, lovely view of Himalayas, salary not too great, but expenses nil.
And there's a theory that, the city gives you what the country cannot. And of course, the joy, the color.
This is not true of India, because in India there is an intermediate category. It's called the Kasba, which is not the city, not the village, not the Dehat. So, and there are cities and cities.
But Kasba is also a city and a growing.
Yeah, but Suniye, that is what the problem is. Whether you stay in a cosmopolitan global city like Bombay, Calcutta, Madras is one thing. Whether you stay in a Delhi, which became a city much too late in life and has a rural hinterland, which is
Delhi was wonderful, yeah.
Delhi was wonderful. And if you stay in a place like, say, Nainital, which is the summer capital of UP, but a very small town, but it has a catchment area. Bhimtal, Bhavali, Mukteshwar, Vaira Group, Almora nearby. So there are different sizes, different places.
When I went to Almora, the energy there was, I felt this is God's own country, really.
The Keralites would not forgive you for this one.
I know, but God's own land.
It is. Kapila Vatsanji used to tell me that this place is charged with energy. You go to Kasar Devi, you sit at the brighting corner and watch the sun. Yeah, I think it's a great place.
Yes. And I'm so grateful. And you know what, guys? I would like to gift the gratitude that I feel for Pushpesh right now to all of you. Because, he makes a difference just by being. He's there in this bustling society, he's there in the debate places, even the government powers that be.
I had a long distance relationship with them.
Yes, but they can't just not take you a little seriously.
I don't think they take me seriously ever.
I wish they would. But anyway, I would like to give that gratitude that I have to you. And please do go and look up each and savor and drink into the pool of each word or each word and that Pushpesh has written and spoken, and the internet is there, and he's an internet in himself, because I know he walks into a household and makes a difference. He walks into a shop and makes a difference. He walks into a lowly chai place, he makes a difference, because he takes himself and his whole universe with him everywhere that he goes, and he's generous with it, and he doesn't let struggle for power, for getting the eyeballs, or all kinds of artificial struggles that we all are engaged in. I should dress well so people think I should wear a tie and a shirt, and he doesn't give in to those. He doesn't get distracted by those. He's himself, and he takes himself to everyone, which is something we should all remember to do, because we all are a universe in ourselves. Thank you so much, Pushpesh. Thank you so much. This is such a wonderful conversation.
Tremendously.
And I'm so glad to, put this little bit of you out to whatever little world I have. Thank you so much. And God bless you. You don't believe in God. I don't either. But I like this God bless you thing.
I loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you.